The number 7. By Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. Published 1880. A deep significance was attached to numbers in hoary antiquity. There was not a people with anything like philosophy, but gave great prominence to numbers in their application to religious observances, the establishment of festival days, symbols, dogmas, and even the geographical distribution of empires. The mysterious numerical system of Pythagoras was nothing novel when it appeared far earlier than 600 years BC. The occult meaning of figures and their combinations entered into the meditations of the sages of every people, and the day is not far off when, compelled by the eternal cyclic rotation of events, our now skeptical unbelieving West will have to admit that in that regular periodicity of ever-occurring events there is something more than a mere blind chance. Already our Western savants begin to notice it. Of late, they have pricked up their ears and begun speculating upon cycles, numbers and all that which, but a few years ago, they had relegated to oblivion in the old closets of memory, never to be unlocked but for the purpose of grinning at the uncouth and idiotic superstitions of our unscientific forefathers. As one of such novelties, the old, and matter-of-fact German journal Die Gegenwart has a serious and learned article upon the significance of the number 7 introduced to the readers as a culture-historical essay. After quoting from it a few extracts, we will have something to add to it perhaps. The author says, The number 7 was considered sacred not only by all the cultured nations of antiquity and the East, but was held in the greatest reverence even by the later nations of the West. The astronomical origin of this number is established beyond any doubt. Man, feeling himself time out of mind dependent upon the heavenly powers, ever and everywhere made earth subject to heaven. The largest and brightest of the luminaries thus became in his sight the most important and highest of powers. Such were the planets which the whole antiquity numbered as 7. In course of time these were transformed into 7 deities. The Egyptians had 7 original and higher gods, the Phoenicians 7 Kabaris, the Persians 7 sacred horses of Mithra, the Parsis 7 angels opposed by 7 demons, and 7 celestial abodes paralleled by 7 lower regions. To represent the more clearly this idea in its concrete form, the 7 gods were often represented as one 7-headed deity. The whole heaven was subjected to the 7 planets, hence, in nearly all the religious systems we find 7 heavens. The beliefs in the Saptaloku of the Brahminical religion has remained faithful to the archaic philosophy, and who knows but the idea itself was originated in Aryavata, this cradle of all philosophies and mother of all subsequent religions. If the Egyptian dogma of the metempsychosis or the transmigration of soul taught that there were 7 states of purification and progressive perfection, it is also true that the Buddhists took from the Aryans of India, not from Egypt, their idea of 7 stages of progressive development of the disembodied soul, allegorized by the 7 stories and umbrellas, gradually diminishing towards the top on their pagodas. In the mysterious worship of Mithra there were 7 gates, 7 altars, 7 mysteries. The priests of many Oriental nations were subdivided into 7 degrees, 7 steps led to the altars and in the temples burnt candles in 7 branched candlesticks. Several of the Masonic lodges have, to this day, 7 and 14 steps. The 7 planetary spheres served as a model for state divisions and organizations. China was divided into 7 provinces, ancient Persia into 7 satrapies. According to the Arabian legend 7 angels cool the sun with ice and snow, lest it should burn the earth to cinders, and 7,000 angels wind up and set the sun in motion every morning. The 2 oldest rivers of the East, the Ganges and the Nile, had each 7 mouths. The East had in the antiquity 7 principal rivers: the Nile, the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Oxus, the Yaxart, the Arax and the Indus, 7 famous treasures, 7 cities full of gold, 7 marvels of the world, and c. Equally did the number 7 play a prominent part in the architecture of temples and palaces. The famous pagoda of Cheringham is surrounded by 7 square walls, painted in 7 different colors, and in the middle of each wall is a 7-storied pyramid, just as in the antediluvian days the temple of Borsippa, now the Burj Nimrud, had 7 stages, symbolical of the 7 concentric cycles of the 7 spheres, each built of tiles and the metals to correspond with the color of the ruling planet of the sphere typified. These are all remnants of paganism, we are told, traces of the superstitions of old, which, like the owls and bats in a dark subterranean, flew away to return no more before the glorious light of Christianity, a statement but too easy of refutation. If the author of the article in question has collected hundreds of instances to show that not only the Christians of old but even the modern Christians have preserved the number 7, and as sacredly as it ever was before, there might be found in reality thousands. To begin with the astronomical and religious calculation of old of the pagan Romans, who divided the week into 7 days, and held the 7th day as the most sacred, the Sol or Sunday of Jupiter, and to which all the Christian nations, especially the Protestants, make puja to this day. If, perchance, we are answered that it is not from the pagan Romans but from the monotheistic Jews that we have it, then why is not the Saturday or the real Sabbath kept instead of the Sunday, or Sol's Day? If in the Ramayana 7 yards are mentioned in the residences of the Indian kings, and 7 gates generally led to the famous temples and cities of old, then why should the Flanders have in the 10th century of the Christian era strictly adhered to the number 7 in dividing their provinces, and insisted upon paying 7 pfennigs of contribution? The Holy Roman and Christian Empire has 7 kurfürsts or electors. The Hungarians emigrated under the leadership of 7 dukes and founded 7 towns, now called Samigradeur, now Transylvania. If pagan Rome was built on 7 hills, Constantinople had 7 names by saints: Antonia, New Rome, the town of Constantine, the separator of the world's parts, the treasure of Islam, Stamboul, and was also called the city on the 7 hills, and the city of the 7 towers as an adjunct to others. With the Mussulmans it was besieged 7 times and taken after 7 weeks by the 7th of the Ottoman sultans. In the ideas of the Eastern peoples, the 7 planetary spheres are represented by the 7 rings worn by the women on 7 parts of the body: the head, the neck, the hands, the feet, in the ears, in the nose, around the waist, and these 7 rings or circles are presented to this time by the Eastern suitors to their brides, the beauty of the woman consisting in the Persian songs of 7 charms. The 7 planets ever remaining at an equal distance from each other, and rotating in the same path. Hence, the idea suggested by this motion, of the eternal harmony of the universe. In this connection the number 7 became especially sacred with them, and ever preserved its importance with the astrologers. The Pythagoreans considered the figure 7 as the image and model of the divine order and harmony in nature. It was the number containing twice the sacred number 3 or the triad, to which the 1 or the divine monad was added, 3 plus 1 plus 3. As the harmony of nature sounds on the keyboard of space, between the 7 planets, so the harmony of audible sound takes place on a smaller plan within the musical scale of the ever-recurring 7 tones. Hence, 7 pipes in the syrinx of the god Pan, or nature, their gradually diminishing proportion of shape representing the distance between the planets and between the latter and the earth, and the 7-stringed lyre of Apollo, consisting of a union between the number 3, the symbol of the divine triad, with all and every people, Christians as well as pagans, and of 4, the symbol of the cosmic forces or elements. The number 7 points out symbolically to the union of the deity with the universe. This Pythagorean idea was applied by the Christians, especially during the Middle Ages, who largely used the number 7 in the symbolism of their sacred architecture. So, for instance, the famous Cathedral of Cologne and the Dominican Church at Regensburg display this number in the smallest architectural details. No less an importance has this mystical number in the world of intellect and philosophy. Greece had 7 sages, the Christian Middle Ages 7 free arts, grammar, rhetoric, dialectics, arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy. The Mohammedan Sheikh al-Islam calls in for every important meeting 7 ulemas. In the Middle Ages an oath had to be taken before 7 witnesses, and the one, to whom it was administered, was sprinkled 7 times with blood. The processions around the temples went 7 times, and the devotees had to kneel 7 times before uttering a vow. The Mohammedan pilgrims turn round Kaaba 7 times, at their arrival. The sacred vessels were made of gold and silver purified 7 times. The localities of the old German tribunals were designated by 7 trees, under which were placed 7 skiffers, judges, who required 7 witnesses. The criminal was threatened with a 7-fold punishment, and a 7-fold purification was required as a 7-fold reward was promised to the virtuous. Everyone knows the great importance placed in the West on the 7th son of a 7th son. All the mythic personages are generally endowed with 7 sons. In Germany, the king and now the emperor cannot refuse to stand as godfather to a 7th son, if he be even a beggar. In the East, in making up for a quarrel or signing a treaty of peace, the rulers exchange either 7 or 49, 7 by 7, presents. To attempt to cite all the things included in this mystical number would require a library. We will close by quoting but a few more from the region of the demoniacal. According to authorities in those matters, the Christian clergy of old, a contract with the devil had to contain 7 paragraphs, was concluded for 7 years and signed by the contractor 7 times. All the magical drinks prepared with the help of the enemy of man consisted of 7 herbs. That lottery ticket wins, which is drawn out by a 7-year-old child. Legendary wars lasted 7 years, 7 months and 7 days, and the combatant heroes number 7, 70, 700, 7,000 and 70,000. The princesses in the fairy tales remained 7 years under a spell, and the boots of the famous cat the Marquis de Carabas were 7-leagued. The ancients divided the human frame into 7 parts: the head, the chest, the stomach, 2 hands and 2 feet, and man's life was divided into 7 periods. A baby begins teething in the 7th month. A child begins to sit after 14 months, 2 by 7, begins to walk after 21 months, 3 by 7, to speak after 28 months, 4 by 7, leaves off sucking after 35 months, 5 by 7, at 14 years, 2 by 7, he begins to finally form himself. At 21, 3 by 7, he ceases growing. The average height of a man, before mankind degenerated, was 7 feet, hence the old Western laws ordering the garden walls to be 7 feet high. The education of the boys began with the Spartans and the old Persians at the age of 7. And in the Christian religions with the Roman Catholics and the Greeks, the child is not held responsible for any crime till he is 7, and it is the proper age for him to go to confession. If the Hindus will think of their Manu and recall what the old Shastras contain, beyond doubt they will find the origin of all this symbolism. Nowhere did the number 7 play so prominent a part as with the old Aryas in India. We have but to think of the 7 sages, the Saptarishis, the Saptaloka, the 7 worlds, the Saptabhara, the 7 holy cities, the Saptadvipa the 7 holy islands, the Saptasamudra the 7 holy seas, the Saptaparvata the 7 holy mountains, the Saptaaranya the 7 deserts, the Saptavriksha the 7 sacred trees, and so on, to see the probability of the hypothesis. The Aryas never borrowed anything, nor did the Brahmins, who were too proud and exclusive for that. Whence, then, the mystery and sacredness of the number 7.